My 4-year-old has been saying all week that I'm going to interview Woody, and she's telling everybody. She thinks you're Woody because I've had the soundtrack on and everything else on, and it's always a picture of Woody. So she's gonna ask me how that went. Uh,
Good. Tell her it went great. Well, it was no issue at all. We just recorded the song as we knew it, as we developed it. We sort of developed it on the spot. I mean, it was kind of strange and stressful. We were in the studio, and there was the head of Disney Records, and there was
huh.
John Lasseter, the head of Pixar, and there was Randy Newman, who wrote the song. And we got to come up with something good. No mistakes. So there was about half a dozen Disney lawyers, let's face it, but it worked out well. Surprisingly enough, we did the Woody's Roundup soundtrack, and then you would think they would prepare it to release at the same time as the movie, but they didn't.
Huh.
We went in later and recorded all the songs, and thankfully got to write a bunch of them. So that was fun for us too.
So you did Grand Ole Opry on Friday, right?
Saturday, yes.
Saturday. How did it go?
Well, it went great. It was our 2,268th appearance on the Grand Ole Opry. Yeah, I think it was December of 1979, and Roy Acuff had us on. And I don't even know that we were riders in the sky at that moment. I guess we were. But he introduced me as Doug Green and Fred Labor, and it was not like we had our whole thing quite together yet, but the music was good. Somebody sent us a tape of it, and I think we did Blue Shadows on the Trail and something up tempo, like maybe When Payday Rolls Around. Well, there's something romantic in the American imagination about cowboys. Now again, the word cowboy is used to mean somebody reckless, and that's not the way I see it. I was sort of shaped by the uh, movies of the 40s and 50s and the TV shows of the 50s, where the cowboy was always the hero. He was the guy who stood up. The Lone Ranger was my idol when I was a kid, and that's the kind of thing that got me interested in loving cowboy music. Well, it's just part of the romantic fantasy of the cowboy is singing.
Yeah.
And in fact, I mean, they did a lot of them. You had to do something at night when everything was quiet. And every situation pre-television and radio and records where men were gathered to uh, do work and then have to live together, there was singing. There are lumberjack songs, of course, the sailor shanties, and it was only natural that the people out in the plains did some singing and probably more fiddle playing, or I imagine it was a little more instrumental. But then there's the whole thing about the cowboys singing softly to keep the cattle from being restless, and doubtless that happened whether they could sing in tune or not.
Huh. Yeah, I like that it's because I think when we talk about westerns, a lot of time people get caught up in the ways that they're inaccurate. That's not how the Wild West. That's not how the frontier was. But I think that we should spend more time looking at the ways that it was similar.
Well, you have a good point. I mean, obviously, there was no character in 1880 like Gene Autry hopping off a beautiful horse with a $1,000 saddle and a $5,000 guitar. But it isn't very accurate. But it is a reflection of how we want to feel about what winning the West was, and how to be a kind person,
Yeah.
and the person who stood up for right even in the face of oppression and evil. Oddly enough, I didn't. We didn't start Riders in the Sky till I was 31 years old.
Oh.
So I had a whole 10 years before that of being an amateur or semi-pro. I did some touring with other groups, but I was also had day jobs, and I worked at the Country Music Hall of Fame, which gave me a infinite field to dive into the history of the music. My uncles two of my uncles played guitar and sang, and my mother was a very good singer. She didn't play anything, well, a tiny bit of piano, but not enough to speak of. And so the between the magic of what I was seeing on TV and in the movies, and the music that my uncles were singing, made me want to pick up the guitar. I was 11, played my Uncle Hank's guitar, which he gave me, and I still have. And
Nice.
when he said he was going to give it to me, I thought, oh man, it's a Pearl Martin, you know,
Oh man, yeah.
1937 Montgomery Ward. Well, I'm just the kind of guy that if I get interested in something, I want to find out more and more about it. And I did a lot of musical journalism early in my career, so I found out I had a minor talent in writing, and so my curiosity in my writing got me into the history of the cowboy and Western music.